I was going to say, it's middle of the afternoon and none of us have eaten. This could make a very interesting.
You haven't eaten.
I haven't eaten either.
What could
Oh boy!
happen?
I was saying
what could go wrong?
We could crash out.
We might crash out.
Welcome to the Sherwood Oak Stories podcast. We love telling life-changing faith stories, and today, Shawn sits down with Braden and Evy Chapman to talk about spiritual disciplines, calling, and living on mission as a young married couple.
Playing silence that it starts.
You guys know. That's right. Well, I am here with Braden and Evy Chapman to just kind of talk through your all's faith journey and how you're living out your faith and how you're doing it individually and as a couple. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Been looking forward to this conversation. And why don't we start with share a little about who you guys are and maybe how you met and all of that.
So I am from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Braden's from around Evansville. He's actually from Boonville, but people just say near Evansville.
Yeah.
So we kind of met in the middle here. We're both students at IU, and we both were going to Sherwood. He was home for his first year because he's a year older. He was home during COVID, doing school online during my senior year of high school, and then my freshman year and his sophomore year were both our first years here. We both went to Sherwood for a year without knowing each other, and then we met at a college welcome serve team meeting because of Ben Geiger. So he takes credit for setting us up, but I don't know about that. And figured out we were both at Sherwood and serving in Chi Alpha, our campus ministry, and I actually changed majors while I was here, going into my sophomore year, and so we ended up being in the same school too, so we just ran into each other pretty much all the time. So we met at Sherwood, which is exciting and fun, and we've loved being here and getting to serve together and be a part of this community. But yeah, before that, very different, awesome families, both of us, but different upbringings, different things. And this is our first year married. So this is 8 months. We got married in August.
Yeah.
So it's been awesome.
That your wedding was my official first thing when I came back from sabbatical. In fact, I don't even know that I was fully back from sabbatical at that point, but I wasn't at all going to miss the opportunity to be a part of that.
We were like praying, like, please let Shawn come back.
It was such a good day. Well, and Evy, you mentioned, I mean, you guys have just very different backgrounds, very different faith stories. Tell us a little bit about your journey with Jesus.
For me, I grew up in kind of a small town. Like there weren't a whole lot of people, but everybody knew everybody. My high school was, 10 miles away from my house, but it was just a fun environment to grow up with. We had four-wheelers, we'd go outside all the time, all these things, and really just got to see the beauty of nature. But both my parents worked full-time all the time, really busy. Mom did telecommunications and dad did sheet metal contracting. So just really dedicated and awesome parents. But through that, they just wanted to spend time with us. And it was a really beautiful expression of their love for us. But also in that, it's like church wasn't the number one priority for us to do. Mm-hmm. But kind of in that process of growing up, I had a cousin that passed away when I was going into middle school. And just like after that, like wrestling with middle school changes and also with the grief process at that age, it was like, well, I started having the big life questions, like what's the meaning of life and where do we go when we die and all these big questions. And I didn't have like a system to answer those questions in. So I started, questioning and really just went on this long journey of pursuit of trying to find out what truth is and ended up finding faith in God.
Okay. I want to get into that more with you here in a little bit. But you had, just a great family, good upbringing. But yeah, faith wasn't really a component of that. You had an event with your cousin's passing and it started making you. And I think oftentimes in that middle school age, we're already entering into those places where we're asking big life questions. And then you compile that with an event like that. And it kind of took you into this bit of a crisis where you're like, what is all of this about? What do I believe about this? Yeah. Okay. we're going to come back because I've got a lot of questions about that. Evie, tell us about your faith journey.
Yeah. So I always say I'm kind of the opposite, because he was definitely like a build up and like, I need all these answers and I want to read through the whole Bible before I commit to this and I want to do all these things. And I was just kind of like, woohoo! Like, this is awesome. Like, great idea, guys. And like, just growing up, my dad...
And that's kind of like, I mean, you guys probably still are a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah, pretty much in everything, you could say. But no, my dad's family was Catholic, my mom's family was Lutheran, and when they started having kids, they're like, oh yeah, probably non-denominational church, and they were like, oh, there's this really cool youth group at this church 5 minutes from our house. So I remember going for the first time, and like some friends were like, oh, we should go to this slime battle or something in middle school, and being like, wow, this is great. So like, even before I knew what it meant, I think I was just like, yeah, I'm a Christian and this is awesome. And I remember like 8th grade, a sermon at youth group where they were like, and you know, the Holy Trinity and Jesus is God. And I was like, whoa. Like, I looked around and I was like, did anyone else just hear that? Like, this is crazy. Like, what's going on? And just being like, like maybe I should figure some more out about this whole like Jesus thing, like what's going on. And that for me was just kind of a process of like, all right, like going into high school, like I want to make this my own thing and I want to actually be able to like live out my faith and not just like not know what anything means ever, but also just like figuring out like what my actual identity is and transforming in that rather than just like, this is something I call myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting is oftentimes what brings us to faith becomes like an obstacle that we need to overcome to grow in our faith. And so if we had a very heady intellectual conversion to faith, the stumbling block or the roadblock that we have to overcome is that there is also an emotional side of faith. It's not just in our mind. We were to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, right? Like everything about us. If we had a very emotional conversion, then there comes a point where, God invites me to love him with my mind as well. And that faith is not just a feeling and it's not just a set of doctrine. It's kind of a beautiful mix of all of these things. And so for you, Evie, how did you navigate that transition from what sounded like a pretty emotional conversion and to like your faith really becoming your own and more than just a feeling that eventually is just going to go away?
So I actually remember a really just like important conversation with my youth pastor in my life in junior year of high school, probably, where I was just asking him all these questions and he told me, you know, faith is greater than feelings and your struggles aren't just for yourself. Like you'll be able to use that for someone in the future. And I just remember like those two things and him just talking about like in Isaiah, like all these scriptures talking about like God's way is higher than ours and like all of these things. And I just remember that conversation and just hearing that one thing, like your faith is more than your feelings. Because up until this point, it was just like a high, like everything was getting better. I'm just doing all these new different things. And then it's like, wait, like, okay, I've been like full in with this like God thing for like 2 years, but like now what? Like it's kind of like the high of just like, whoa, this is a new fun thing is like wearing off a little bit. And it's like, am I going to choose for this to be the rest of my life or is this just going to be a phase of time? And for me, I honestly think the thing that really helped me besides that conversation and just realizing like, okay, I actually want to know about God and I want to know him and combine those two things. But it was also like, I want to take responsibility for the people around me. And I just remember being able for the first time to be like, oh, this is important to me. I'm choosing this and I want to invite other people into it. And having that responsibility gave me an accountability with it to be like, if I'm telling all these people like Jesus is the greatest thing in the world and this is what I'm living my life about, then it better be true. And I better be following all these things I'm telling other people to do.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it was really just getting involved. And when I was serving, it was like I was transformed to realize like I need this to be a genuine, real center of my life or this isn't going to work because I'm not going to be able to sustain all these things I'm doing if my relationship with God isn't the first thing that's
Yeah. If you're going to be inviting other people to find what you found, you want to make sure like you're not leaving them in a in a direction leading them
Yeah.
astray or something.
Yeah.
Like you want to make sure that it's real, that it means something beyond just what you feel.
Yeah, and just making sure that my identity is in who God says I am, because just growing up, it's like, I love basketball. It's my favorite thing in the world, but it was just, that's who I am for so long in my life. Like, that's my first, like, I'm a basketball player. Like, if I'm introducing myself, and it's like, oh, learning to put follower of Jesus above basketball, above like academics and all these achievements I want to accomplish. Like, that was when it was real, because it was like, I can't be like, yeah, my life's all in on this. And then it's like, well, if you took away basketball or you took away my school and all these achievements, would I still be okay? And so I came here to row and to be pre-med, and all of that is different now. So like sophomore year was like, I'm getting injured and I'm medically retiring and I'm changing my major and I'm feeling this like, okay, I want to like serve people, and I just like am hearing all this about the Great Commission. I'm like, that's what I want to do with my life, and like I got it now. And it's like, wait, like all this other stuff over here that I thought I was and that was my like primary identity is stripped away. And so now what am I? And it's like, I'm pursuing Jesus, and that's all I know right now. And it's like, that's, I feel like, what made it real to me, and something that was like, this is what I want to pursue for the rest of my life. So.
And sometimes it does take that stripping away of everything else to realize, no, the most important part about who I am is I am a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
And then everything else is secondary to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Braden, let's go back to that long conversion journey that you had. What were some of the questions that you had, some of the doubts, things that you wrestled with about faith?
I think the common questions that a lot of people run into, just like, why do bad things happen to good people? Like, I mean, if the world is telling us like people are good, then why do bad things happen? There's so many that I didn't really know how to process them all the time. Other ones was like, is there one true way, or are all of these different major world religions like viable paths? We live in a very multicultural society. Like, the internet is an open door to people in places around the world that believe very different things than what we believe. I wrestle with a lot of those things. Like, is there one truth, and is there one answer to all of life's greatest questions? And eventually landed on that, but it took a while.
Well, that whole idea of the exclusivity of Christ, that when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no one comes to the Father except through me. That is it has always been a controversial statement. It was then, and I think in our culture, it is as much now as ever. And so you were kind of wrestling with that. Like, well, what about all of these other ways and religions? So what was most helpful for you in your journey?
The most helpful thing was just having people that were willing to come alongside me in that time and answer those questions. I had some friends that were like strong believers, in their family, like their family was my pastor and everything growing like in that stage, and they would just sit and answer questions, or they would, write out, like, if I had a question and I would send it to them, like they would take time and meditate on it and like send scriptures that relate to it. They really just sat with me in that process. And it was never like a forcing thing, like, hey, you need to be figuring these things out so that you can be saved. It was like, they just sat with me and answered the questions as they came up for, the better part of like 4 years.
Wow.
So,
and you probably know how rare that is.
Yeah.
And that's the exception, unfortunately, rather than the rule. A lot of times people start asking questions in church or in their family, and people start getting a little bit afraid, and it's like, just believe. So why do you think people are sometimes afraid of the questions that teenagers, students have? And what was it about the people that were willing to walk alongside of you that was different?
I think the fear that some adults have when answering questions for teenagers or for young adults or for other adults too is a lot of the times not having those answers for themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that the confidence that we can walk out in and answer the students that we meet with, we can say, I don't know, but I'll look at that with you, and I'll dive into this question with you and figure it out. And I think that was the most assuring thing at that point, is like having people like legitimately just say, I don't know, and hey, let's figure it out together.
And their faith was strong enough to realize that this question's not going to make everything crumble.
Right.
Or they believe what they believe enough that there's no question that's not worthy or able to have some kind of a response. Yeah. No, that's good. And I think that is, you're right on. Sometimes we are afraid of those questions because they're questions that we have that we've just suppressed and buried, and they are going to, like, addressing them is going to bring those up inside of us, and we don't like that. And so we just have faith, or we tamper them down or ignore them. But when you grow in a confidence in what you believe and why you believe it, you feel the assurance and comfort to step into those places with people.
Yeah.
I think we've both just been learning just to be in awe of like the endless knowability of God rather than scared of it. And like, it's so cool that God's so big that we'll never know everything about him on this side of heaven. But it's like, that used to be something that was just like, oh, like I'm never going to know everything. So how can I know this is the answer? And how can I do this? But it's like God wouldn't be big enough to be God if he was small enough that we knew everything about him. And
That's
cool.
really good.
So.
Yeah. Say that again. God wouldn't be...
I'll flip it.
Okay.
So if God was small enough that we knew everything about him, he wouldn't be big enough to be God.
Yeah.
And to be worshipped and for us to devote our lives to him and to be on mission for him.
Yeah.
So.
And so we need people that are willing to enter into that mystery with us, enter into that space of unknown, and understand that, a lot of the questions that we have responses, good biblical responses, but then there are some places where we do reach the end of ourselves and our limited ability, and just to be okay with the beautiful mystery of a big God that we can't fully understand. But we can know, right? We can know who he is. Yeah, that's good. So, Braden, for people that maybe are listening right now, that find themselves in that place of asking questions, wrestling with some doubts, what's something that you might say to them?
The first thing is just find a really awesome local church to get plugged into if you're not plugged into one. And if you are plugged into a local church and maybe you're not involved, or maybe you are involved but you don't have people that are pouring into your life, like, go find somebody who is a little bit ahead of you in life stage and just ask them, like, hey, would you sit down with me and let me ask some questions and things that I'm working through. And if the first person says no, find someone else.
Find that safe person that's willing to
find somebody. Yeah.
And what about there may be a parent of a student right now who is worried. They see their student asking questions they don't know how to answer. And what would you say to the person who has someone in their life who was where you were in that long conversion exploring phase?
If it's a parent or somebody that's like concerned about their kid, obviously we don't have kids, so we don't know what that aspect of it's like. But at that time, my parents trusted other people to be able to speak into my life and to work with me and answer those questions. And like, if parents are out there like worried about their kid finding answers in this process of wrestling with big life questions, I would say help them find a trusted adult, or help them find a mentor that they can have these conversations with. Because I think a lot of times all of us have our angsty teenage phase where it's like, oh, mom and dad, they don't know anything.
So true.
And then you come back later and you're like, oh wait, mom and dad actually knew a lot of stuff. But you can oftentimes break through that by listening to someone else that's outside of that situation.
Amber and I have talked about this since the girls were born, the value of having multiple voices in their life that are kind of saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And then multiple voices that can maybe say it differently or even better than what we can. And it's just all kind of solidifying that in them along the way. So we talked about it a little bit earlier. You guys are celebrating your first anniversary in August. So about 8 months married, and you joked, sent out a little questionnaire before, just to kind of get an idea of what we can explore. And you joked that getting married was a small act of faith with a big impact. You all were very intentional about your relationship and wanting it to honor God. And I think even to the point you told me that there were some friends that found out that you guys were getting married and you hadn't lived together first. And they're like, wait, what do you mean you haven't lived together? Like, how do you know if it's going to work? So why was it important for you all to make sure that your relationship in every way was as God honoring as it could be?
I mean, I think a lot of it is just making sure that both of us have the main thing, like faith in God as our main priority. And then, just pouring out from there and continuing to figure out all the fine details, like after that, like keep the main thing, and then we can figure out all the small details. Like, we're very different personality wise. We're very different in like our habits. We're very different in like the way that we operate or organize or do all these other things. But I mean, at the end of the day, both of us have God at the center, and that makes all of these other things be not non-issues, but minor. Like it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things.
I think in short, marriage, I don't know how it would work if it wasn't like God at the center, all of that. Like we've just explored this year, that if it's not our personal devotional time with Jesus is first priority, and like us having relationship with him first, and then pouring into each other, and then going out and doing things and serving people, it's like you're just going down the chain and none of it is going to work if you're not following the way. It's like scripture tells us not everything about marriage, but the core of what it is and what the purpose is of it, and how it's representing Christ and the church. And it's like, that's important. And I think like getting married young too, like was another shock factor for people. Like I'll go to class and people are like, are you wearing a wedding ring? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you're like 22. And I'm like, no, I'm actually 21. So it's just like, I think it is a shock. And I think a lot of people have like hurt from seeing marriages or things that have been hard, or relationships that have been hard. And for us, it's just like, we are so confident like that our ministry can be better lived out together than it could have been separately. And it's like, that's kind of hard to explain to like a random person in class, but it's just been a blessing. And I think, again, like I've heard people say that marriage, like a healthy marriage, is like one of the best representations of the gospel you can like show people, because unfortunately it's not super common. Like we just have a lot of things that are like, I don't know, things to protect our marriage. Like, I mean, we have differences in hobbies. Like I'm like messy and like he's clean and like things like that. And I'll like talk to someone about that or whatever, but I'm never going to be like talking negatively about Braden to people. Like our marriage is like, this is what we're protecting, and our other relationships are secondary to that. And I think there's just so much that we do that I think people hopefully like realize is different, and not that it's been perfect, but it is just like we have this sense of hope of what our marriage is representing and of what it can be. And people notice that like in the groups we lead. Like I've had girls come to me and be like, you know, Braden's just a lot nicer than any guy I've ever been with. And I'm like, so true. And they're like, yeah, he's just like, I don't know. I guess I just didn't realize that guys could like love Jesus and like also like want to get married like young, and like you just have all these things, and like how did you like find him? And I'm like, I don't know. Like just like prayer, like I don't know. But I'm like, I'm glad I did. But people notice that there's something different with just wanting to do things God's way. And he's blessed that for sure.
So it's almost like when you've got when the main thing is the most important thing, like when it's founded on Jesus, there's going to be little things that pop up that without that firm foundation could become kind of like deal breakers, you know, expectations. And it's not just the small things. Then even when you get to like some bigger things, some disagreements and just fundamentally seeing things differently. But if you're able to refocus yourselves back on Christ, then you still have some issues to work out, but it's like, okay, we can do this because this foundation is strong. And, for people who see that and who don't understand, how could you do this? If they aren't putting Jesus into that equation, then it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. They're just looking at all of the things that could split or has split or been divisive. Yeah. But you all are saying, no, we're just going to commit first and foremost to Christ as the most important part of our marriage. And we'll figure the rest out, and he'll help us along the way.
Yeah. And we get a lot of like, how was the first year of marriage? And people are just like, it's going to be so hard, and just you have to figure all this stuff out, and just wait, like it just gets worse. And this, and like I'm like, guys, like come on, like give us some better.
Hopeful.
I'm like, are you kidding me? But it's just like, it's just been, and not that there haven't been things we've had to figure out. Like, obviously that is a thing, and you're living with each other for the first time and you're figuring stuff out. It's been amazing for us. And it's like at the end of every day, it's like you get to spend time with your best friend, like every night. We like lay down, we get to recap our days, probably me more than you. But and then it's like we get to pray to the God we love, serve him together. And it's like, there's nothing, I mean, it's not the typical college experience in any way. Like, I got married after my junior year, but it's like I would never ask for anything different, or can't imagine it any other way.
I think it also just gives you, well, it gives both of us like a sense of stability and security.
Yeah.
In God, but also in each other. Like, we didn't have to wonder like, oh, how is this going to work out? What's going to happen if like breakups or anything like that? Because we didn't live together before we got married. Like we didn't have that conflict in the same way that a lot of people do. I think it's just normal in our culture now where, you know, people move in together before they get married and they have a relationship that, you know, you're 5 or 6 years in and people aren't married yet. And I think the conflict that a lot of people get into and the wrestling and the questioning that they're having in that process is just because they don't have confidence or security in that relationship because it hasn't been like rooted in a firm commitment first. Yeah. And like I'm not judging anybody that's in that situation. That's what our culture is teaching us. But I think doing it this other way, like the way that God shows us, just opens up the door to so much deeper love, connection, and security than you could possibly have in any other situation.
Yeah, we're going into this place of complete vulnerability with one another, which is what marriage is in every way. And we've made a commitment to one another that no matter what we discover in this process, we are committed to one another. Where without that commitment, you're stepping in and there's that complete vulnerability, and there's, I imagine, always in the back of your mind wondering, are they going to stay when they find out who I really am? And if we are putting our confidence in this other person being perfect or making us happy or being tolerable rather than in Christ, then we're going to live a little bit with that insecurity.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's the piece of just our devotional lives being so important. It's like 1 week I'll be like, wow, like Braden's kind of annoying me, and so is everyone else. And like, why is everyone just like bothering me all the time? And then I'm like, oh, like how much time have I spent with the Lord this week? It's like probably not enough, you know?
Yeah. All right. Well, all of this sounds so good. And it's like, we want that. But listen, reality. Okay. So you said there's nothing off limits that I can't talk about. So what is the dumbest thing you guys have argued about in this first 8 months of marriage?
I feel like we had a response.
There's something recently, yeah. Because I was like, oh, that's a good one. Because we get this question sometimes.
Yes, somebody asked us this like 2 months ago, but I'm forgetting what we said.
Well, that's a good sign that you're not still stewing on it.
It's like, oh, I can't believe this. Yeah. Okay, recently I would say my parents for Christmas got him I call it the stupid egg. I don't know what its real name is. It's like a sunrise alarm. Is that?
Yes, it's an alarm clock
I hate that
like
thing.
Simulates a sunrise.
Because he wakes up like 2 hours before me every day. I'm like, oh, like I was like, are there birds in our room? Like like what is going on? Like, because if it's just the alarm, it's like, okay, turn it off. Now our room is bright. Like there's all this like. I think that, but I don't even think we got an argument about that. I was just like, I hate this stupid egg, and it needs to go. But then we figured it out, and we still have the egg. So
you figured it. So Braden, you're living in another room now. Is that how you figured it out?
No, actually, what we figured out so we got it at Christmas, and as the sunrises were getting earlier, it was the natural sunlight coming through the window that was actually like making it harder for Evie to go back to sleep. So we went to Target and we found like a cheap curtain rod and everything and got those put up. And then since then, and unless this is not true, since then, when the alarm clock goes off, like it's a 30-minute, like it slowly gets brighter and then it goes off with the alarm, and the alarm, it sounds like birds, but I don't know. But when it goes off, I immediately get up, turn it off, and then I go into the office to read and get ready for work. And then you haven't like stayed awake that I've
No.
noticed since we got those
That's
curtains.
the thing, and just in general, is like he is like a fixer, like he'll fix problems. I just am like, oh yeah, we have this thing going on. And he's like, have you like gone to the store, just get like curtains? And I'm like, what? Like I genuinely would never think about that, and I'm not even kidding. Like it's just like, oh man, I keep waking up. Like guess I'm supposed to be up for the day. But I'm so tired. And he's like, there's a solution, but it's just like with everything. I'm
They
like,
make
wow.
these things that you can put on the windows to make them dark.
Like, how do you know all this stuff? Like, what?
Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
That's good. So how did you all, and this can be as a couple or individually, how have you learned to like listen to God's voice above all of the other voices and opinions coming at you? You know, you went through IU. Evy, you're still going through it.
2 more months.
2 more months. How did you just learn that discernment to hear the voice of God through all of the noise of the other voices coming at you?
I mean, I would just say like getting away and being in silence and solitude and like actual silence, like quiet. Like some of my best times with God throughout college have been like something big is happening and I'm journaling and I'm like dog sitting at someone else's house. So it's just me. There's some dogs outside, but it's like me and God sitting in the living room and I'm just like, all right, like just actually 100% devoted like in those moments to like listening to him and just kind of tuning out a lot of other stuff going on. And I think for us, for like big stuff, it's like obviously inviting people into that, like that we trust and that are mentors and people that we respect their faiths and their life. But also we've learned like not inviting too many people into things because you get like I remember in high school, like when I was like, where should I go to college? I met with like 20 people and I was like, what do you think? And it was like, okay, like I need to really discern like who are people I'm going to for advice and like who are people I'm telling this is what I'm doing, you know? So I think like that's been awesome, but genuinely just like being alone with God and saying like recommitting like daily, but especially in the big times, just like being like, okay, this is something I really need to focus on, silence and solitude, because our culture is just noise all the time. Like if you walk into a restaurant now, like they're so like you can barely talk to anyone and people are always on their phones. Like there's always something. If you're walking around campus, it's AirPods and it's like TikTok going while you're walking or you're on the bus or something. It's like people don't just like sit in silence anymore, and it's almost because they can't. Like we're trained to not sit in your thoughts, and it's like that's where God speaks, is when everything else is off. So that's been helpful, and we've really had to like carve that out, like work to carve that out this year because we've been busy, but realizing that busyness isn't feeding our souls.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that it's true. That's like God speaks in a still small voice most of the time. It's like it's not going to be this big, you know, trumpet from the clouds announcement to each and every one of us. But I think having that time for me especially, like I like to get up. I like to do that, like have my devotional time first thing in the morning. And I notice like a difference in myself if that's not the first thing that I center my day on. But yeah, having that time to just sit there and really contemplate like, okay, what is this passage saying? Like, what is God showing to me in these situations or in this story from the Bible that I'm reading? What is he trying to show me right now? And I think like a big thing that we've been processing through, but maybe a little bit more just me, but God's word in the Bible is like his just general revealed will to all of us. And like it's so applicable to every life situation that you're in. And I think a lot of times, especially people our age that are like getting ready to graduate or just recently graduated college, they're like, oh man, what am I going to do? Like, what's my job? What's my calling? Where am I supposed to move? What am I supposed to do with my life? And it's like, I don't think God's asking us to have all of that figured out. And he's just wanting us to be faithful and work through that process with him. And a lot of times he doesn't give us a clear answer of what you're supposed to do. He's just asking you to take a faithful next step.
I agree. I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to know God's specific will, right? And there are absolutely times we see it in Scripture, and I think maybe in our lives of others, where there is something that God just reveals, this is a specific will. But more often than not, like overwhelmingly more often than not, it is God has given us his word. He's given us guidance on how to live and how he wants us to live and relate to each other and the world around us. And his will is for us to just live in what we know and to not get caught up in the things that we don't. and to understand that, man, we're not going to make a decision that's going to cause God to go, well, now you just blew the whole thing. Way to go.
And I think we see that a lot, and especially me right now, just being a senior and being around people who are like, what's next and what's happening? And I'm just like really grateful that like being a follower of Christ gives you such a peace about like, okay, whatever is the next step, like God will reveal it to me as it's time for that to happen. And not that that doesn't mean like, okay, I need to be looking for jobs, I need to be figuring out, I need to be thinking and praying about this and actually like taking steps towards figuring it out. But it is just like, there's such a deep piece of like, I'm okay no matter what. And sometimes it's like, oh, like you have your job figured out. And I'm like, well, like, you know, I want to serve God however I can. I love people. I love being around people. I love connecting with people. I love just getting to live out the Great Commission and making disciples and like just seeing that come to fruition and people that I care about. And like, I don't know, that's what I want to do
However
with my
you
life,
get to express
you know?
that.
And the rest of that
is-
is just details. So
why do you think it is, and I'm talking about specifically maybe the students and friends that you all have that are followers of Jesus.
Mhm.
Why do you think it is that we want that specific will so badly?
I think a lot of people want it because it's like we're so used to quick and easy. Google,
Yeah.
we can just find an answer to any question that we have. You can look it up on ChatGPT and it'll, you know, give you a whole like 5-paragraph essay about it. But we're so used to quick and easy answers that we've lost the ability to like sit and wrestle with something or sit in uncertainty and not immediately look for an out.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of people and for us, like there's gonna be seasons where we really don't know what's next. Like right now, you don't know exactly what your job situation looks like. I'm considering going back to school. Like we don't know what the next 5 years look like. Like we have plans, but God's just laughing at those plans because I'm sure he's got way bigger and better things in store than we could ever imagine. But I think people just we're not comfortable with uncertainty in the way that God's just asking us to be faithful in that.
Yeah. I think there's also a component that I notice in myself every once in a while, just like being a prideful human being. Like I make myself a lot bigger and more important than I am. And it's like, I know like God cares about me a lot and I know he invites me to be a part of his plan, but it's not like, all right, if I don't move to this specific city, everything is messed up. No one will have salvation. This is terrible. Like, it's like, all right, he's inviting me to be a part of his work, and that's awesome. And I'm so grateful, even though humans, like, we're so messed up and we failed over and over. And he's still saying, I want you to be a part of this redemptive plan. And I just get to step into that and say, okay, wherever you'll lead me. But sometimes I think I'm like, God has to have something specific for me that I need to do. And it's like, he doesn't need me to do anything.
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's like having that perspective that allows you to have a little bit more peace about it.
He's inviting you into just enjoying an adventure of faith and trust in him, wherever it is that you find yourself. I think one of my favorite illustrations of this concept that we're talking about, you know, that God's general will is like a playground. And what we find in Scripture, it's like the boundaries around the playground. And that kind of sets it. And then God is this heavenly Father who invites us in. And I mean, there's like a swing set over here, there's a slide, there's all these different things that you can play with. And when we go into the park, we're like, okay, God, tell me what you want me to play on. And he's like, no, just go play. I'm like, no, but tell me what you want me to go play on. and God's just inviting us like, no, stay in the park and go and play and enjoy what I've created for you. And yeah, we've maybe lost a little bit of that creativity of how to take what we do know and apply it to where we are. And that is living in God's will and pleasing to him.
Yeah. And figuring out like, what am I gifted in? What are my passions? What am I good at? How do I align those things and serve God with that? And I think for us, like we've just figured out different things. Like Braden is a lot more skilled in like teaching. When he's talking about scripture and explaining things to people, I'm like, how do you, like, it's amazing. And like administration, we did like the SHAPE spiritual gift test, and I'm way more on the side of like, my first thing, it's like, this is what I want to do, is like evangelism and shepherding and just like, you know, like being like, yes, let's go do this, guys. And like, just, I think for us, like, I mean, even in marriage, realizing we're filling in each other's gaps has been really cool for our ministry.
Yeah.
But also just like getting to realize that we can be aware of like what things are filling us up and how we can partner with God because of the things we already love to do, and not having to say, God wants me to do something. He's asked me to do something that I hate. And it's like, most of the time he's not.
Yeah. Or I have to wait until God tells me what to do before I can be used by him or make an impact for his kingdom.
And I think even like goes back to what we were talking about like just ask someone to pour into you. Like if you have questions, it's like our generation is really scared to initiate things. And it's like, that is where there's so much joy. Like even just getting to invite people over, like my favorite thing in the world is like meeting someone I don't know. You get to hear their life story, but it's like that will never happen unless you just go up to someone and you're like, oh, hey, we've just like lost the ability to do that as a society. And it's like, that is so life-giving. Maybe not to everyone, I don't know. But like, just like initiating things like that is so important.
It's one of my favorite things about the two of you as a couple. And that list grows longer the more I get to know you. But you guys initiate and you invite people over. And when I say you guys, maybe Evie and Braden goes along. There is a component to this where there's a natural, maybe extrovertedness and everything. But Braden, I've seen, you're at all of the things as well. And you've taken on your role. And so sometimes that we do something because it's just natural gifting. And sometimes we do it because we know it's a part of following Jesus. So how have you grown into that?
I think a lot of it is, again, like Evie was saying, just filling in the gaps. She's shown me a lot of how you can love people well by reaching out to them and inviting them into the spaces where you're already in. But I think the big thing for me is like, I have to recognize my own limitations. I can't just do everything that Evie's going to go out and do. If we were like taking sign-up sheets to go to the mall and just talk to people like that we've never met before for 8 hours straight, that sounds like my worst nightmare. But Evie's signing up, like her name's going to be the first on the list.
Yeah.
But still, like in that process, like I've been able to come alongside like Evie as she meets people or as I meet people and just, again, fill in gaps and share in like a deep appreciation for their story. Like I'm way more comfortable in a setting like this where it's just the three of us talking than it would be like standing in front of 500 people. But I don't know, just really having deep connections with people is something that like Evie's shown me a lot of the like value and importance of, and I've been able to grow and build off of that.
It's funny because we were talking about this with our friend Hannah last night, and I said I just can't wait for summer because I just want to go to ice cream and just like meet random people, because there's this time last summer, I think it was 2 summers ago, me, Braden, and Hannah were at Jiffy Tree, and we met this couple and we talked to them. We sat at Jiffy Tree with them for 4 hours. And I was like having the time of my life. And Hannah was like, Evie, after 30 minutes, I thought you were ending the conversation. And we were there for 3.5 more hours. And I was like, what? Like, I thought everyone was like, loving it. Like,
Hannah was like, I needed to go take a nap after that.
It was very enjoyable. It was a great conversation. And I don't know if you initiated or I did. I thought it would be interesting to talk to him because the guy had a new red Corvette, and I love that car.
Oh,
so
yeah,
it was cool.
Absolutely.
But then there's things that I'm like, okay, anything that I do, I literally couldn't function without like just the skills and giftings that Braden has. Like one day he just like woke up and he's like, I was like, what? And he's like, if I just like suddenly died, would you like know where any of our money is, or like how to do taxes, or like do you know anything about how we pay rent? And I was like, nope.
Braden, I didn't even know that they made these things called blinds. How am I going to know that?
What do you expect?
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's get into this. This is the last topic I want to explore with you guys. We could talk about so many other things, but just this idea of like discipline, personal discipline, even shared discipline as like a couple, and living disciplined lives. And I remember when Amber and I went through Financial Peace University years ago, and Dave Ramsey talking about in every marriage, when it comes to money, you have the free spirit who's like, money grows on trees, we'll get more, whatever, let's get this. And then you have the nerd that's like, no, actually, it doesn't. And we need to calculate this and be a little bit more responsible. And I can guess which is the free spirit, and affectionately which is the nerd in the relationship. But when it comes to discipline, how have you guys learned to do that individually as a couple? if that makes sense.
I think a lot of it is just knowing who Evie is, knowing who I am, and trying to balance out each other's strengths and weaknesses. Like, I know sitting down and looking at taxes or sitting down and looking at finances for 3 hours is like Evie's worst nightmare. So
I started crying the first time I did that.
Yes, and I learned from that experience.
So for real, the first week
Yes.
after we get back from our honeymoon, I just thought, I need to balance the checkbook. Like I'm the guy. I need to do this. My wife, meanwhile, is pursuing a business degree in college. And so I go and I do all of that, and I come out and I must have looked like totally frazzled and stressed. And she's like, "Do you want me to do that?" Like, "Yes, please." And she's been doing it ever since. So yes, I get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like is a beautiful thing too. Like with personality differences, like I mean, there are like roles that God is asking men to do, and there's roles that God is asking women to do. But like the beautiful thing is us being in marriage, like we can figure those things out together. Like I lean a little bit more into the nerd side where like it doesn't bother me to look at a spreadsheet. It doesn't bother me to look at like our finances or taxes or anything like that. But I can also take what I know about Evie and know that those things are not enjoyable for her, and I can do what I'm good at and then equip her to like go do the things that she's good at. So like one thing that we found out pretty early on, and that I'm blessed in the job that I have, that we can do this, like everything is automated. So Evie's like checking account that she had from before we were married, and my checking account that I had from before we were married, 2.5% of my paycheck goes to each of those accounts every week. You can spend it on whatever the heck you want. Like it's your own discretionary fund, and like that equips both of us to like, if I want to go buy a book, it's like if it's within this threshold of however much money that is, I can go buy that. That's my budget. And that's really freeing for both of us, because then everything else is like it's focused on the things that it needs to be focused on. It's saving for the future and paying our bills and all that stuff. There's so many areas where it's just like Evie's really good at that and I'm not. And it's like the talking to people or like scheduling. Like I've apologized to all of my friends because I forget to schedule like just hangouts. Like if it was not for Evie and for like really loving and caring friends, like I probably would just stay at home all the time. But Evie and those other people are able to like pull that out of me, and I love spending time with all those people. Yeah. But it's just like I would totally forget to do that. Yeah. And forget to prioritize that without those people.
And I think it's just like trusting that the systems you set up, like you know a lot more. Honestly, most things I'm like you just know a lot more about them than I do. And it's like you're worth being led by, I guess, in a lot of areas. Like it's like if you're in a relationship and the person is just like, all right, here's where we're going, here's what we're doing. And it's like they don't know what they're talking about. It's like, yeah, maybe not. But it's like when you're married to someone who it's like, okay, like normally when you say like, oh, this is my idea for this, I'm like, oh, yeah, like that makes sense. And you know a lot more about most things.
Kind of proven yourself to be a trustworthy person.
Yeah. And just like, I'm like, oh, these systems, they make sense. And so, I mean, that's worked for us. And then I think there's another side like to discipline too, with just like the way we live our lives in like spiritual disciplines and the way that we're, you know, carving out time like to be with each other and like post being married, like just things have been super busy, like we said, and like we're, you know, like he's working full time, I'm a full-time student, we're volunteering with our campus ministry, and we're with those people like 24/7, which is awesome. And just like living out, like I said, nothing I would rather be doing, just like getting to see, like baptizing some of our like closest friends in the world. Like those are moments in college that I'm like, that is my favorite part of school. And like it's nothing related to like what I came here to do or what you came here to do, but it's like those are the moments. But we can't do that in a healthy way without having the discipline to say, here's where we're doing this. Here's where we're doing this. We're going to carve out time for healthy habits. We're going to the gym. We're having this be a thing. We're going to start cooking instead of randomly going out to eat. We're going to set these limits because we know that we need that margin. And both of us have lived very marginless lives. And it's like, that's not going to work. Yeah. So, I mean, we've just set really good boundaries this year. Not that they always work. Like we definitely have had to discuss and figure out like, okay, we need to lock in on this right now or figure out this thing. But it's like when we're living within these like parameters of like, okay, this is how we can live a healthy lifestyle. This is how we can pour into people. This is how we can love each other and love God better. Like things just work. Like it's just, this is the way God designed.
You had mentioned the discipline of rest.
Yeah.
And you talked about that a little bit earlier. And about the way that God designed it to be. Like God created our bodies with limits. Yeah. And that's actually an act of grace.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That He created us to have to slow down sometimes. And we may think, I don't have any limits. And we keep bumping up against them. And we find out, oh no, I do. And a lot of us, it takes a long time before we learn the discipline of rest. Yeah. Why did you put it like that? Like, why is rest a discipline for us that we need to practice?
Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Which sounds so weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, rest is hard. What do you mean rest is hard?
Yeah.
Like, it's so easy to sleep or to do nothing. But not always.
I think it's hard for two main reasons. One being like, we just live in a yes culture. Like you have to say yes to things. We feel guilty or ashamed if we say no and set up some boundaries. It's freeing to set up boundaries in a way that I didn't know when I was living, quote, undisciplined. But it's like you were saying earlier with the playground. If you have the boundaries of the playground, you can enjoy to the fullest extent everything that's within that playground. And if you don't have the boundaries in place, then chaos goes in. And a kid gets lost and runs into the street.
That's right.
But yeah, I think the other side of it, we were designed for rest in such a way that if we're not practicing a healthy rhythm of Sabbath or taking a day off, and we're not perfect at this, we're still in a college schedule, it's hectic, it's crazy. But if you don't have that in place and you're not bowing to the natural limitations that you have, you're just going to keep running up against the wall. And that was the thing with me for years, from probably junior year of high school until halfway through senior year of college. It was like every single day off that I had or every single break, I would get sick, like physically ill, just because I was running myself so hard in between those breaks.
And so then when you finally stopped,
when
your
I stopped, my
caught
body
up
just,
to you.
Yeah. Run off adrenaline, caffeine, everything else. In between those, and then once you hit a break, then it's like you hit a wall, and then it's like I would just keep going back into that. It's like, oh, this is the pace that I can maintain. It's like I just know that I'm going to get sick on spring break, Christmas break, and fall break.
Yeah, I think as college students, it's easy to believe like after this stage of life, then it's going to be way easier to rest. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just figure it out then. But I mean, people have been graceful in like telling us like actually it just gets harder like all the time because you are setting these rhythms and then that's just what you continue to do. So we're like, okay, we need to figure out how to do this now or else we're just never gonna rest. So
man, I thought we've been going at a pretty good pace in life and we'd learned some good healthy rhythms and when to slow down and when to speed up and there's definitely been times where I will tell Amber, oh, this is just a season. It'll slow down. And she's like, this has been a really long season. How long is the season going to go? And we didn't know anything about what it is to go hard until our girls turned 12. And I've talked to other parents about this. When they turn 12, it's like, their schedules are just packed now. And we are Uber drivers and just getting them from one place to another. And like we're eating on the road and we're not together and all of this. And it's just chaotic. And so you have to choose, what are we going to say no to? And it's not like there's easy things in our life to say no to. The reason it's hard is because they're all so good and we want to be a part of it. And so what are we saying no to say yes to like the better thing?
And just identifying like where's guilt coming from. If I'm guilty for not being somewhere, it's like why and like who's putting that on me, know? So
I think a lot of that is self-inflicted for both of us.
Yeah. Well, and you said it, like we are made to rest. Our bodies are also made to work. God designed us to work as much as he did to rest. When we really experience the fullness of those rhythms that he's invited us into, I think that we just experience the joy of how he has designed us to live. When I was on sabbatical last year, the first month and a half, maybe even up to 2 months, was super refreshing and restful. And I enjoyed it. Yep. I loved it. And then right around that third month, I started to get pretty antsy And I was like, I want to go back. I want to go back. I miss what I get to do. I miss the people that I get to do it with. And I remember taking that to the Lord and him just impressing on my heart, like, this is the sacrifice of Sabbath. Like, rest is not always easy. There's always going to be more to do. There's always going to be things that we enjoy doing. But there's the sacrifice in rest to say, I'm going to set that aside for a season because I know that this is what I need. And that last month of my sabbatical was probably the hardest to be off. But I think I would say it was also the most fruitful because I really learned what it was to find my full identity and trust and rest in the Lord.
Yeah, that's encouraging. Taking a self-proclaimed mini sabbatical this summer.
Good for you.
For those who don't know. Yes. So post-graduation, I'm like, whatever job I start working, like, unless they're like, you must start now, like, August is the best I can do. We're figuring out, like, it's, like we said, transitions and seeing, like, okay, like, what does a summer look like where I'm not in school, I'm not doing college ministry full-time, like, he's working, but not as heavily doing stuff with the college ministry either, and we're just getting to, like, travel and be together and just spend time, like, really abiding in God for those months before it's like, that's a season that's going to be awesome and life's going to get busy
That's
again,
right,
and that's going to be awesome.
And you don't know when you'll have that opportunity to do it again. You guys, I want to close with two more questions. Thank you so much for the time. This has been fun. But what would you say to an individual or a couple who's trying to figure out how to live on mission in their everyday life? You guys model this so well. And so what would you say to the person who desires that in their life as well?
Talk to someone about it. Like, I feel like so many couples, just in general, not even with this, but just get into this, like, mindset of, like, oh, we need to just figure everything out on our own. Like we said, like, reach out to someone, talk about, like, what are opportunities for us to get involved and just, like, take those first steps. And also just, like, honestly pray for fervency to be on mission with Jesus. It's like, he will answer that. Like, there's so many times where I'm like, oh, like, my devotional life is feeling, we always say, like, kind of crunchy recently. And it's like, I just need to pray, like, God, like, give me more zeal. Like, I want to, like, love going through scripture. And, like, not that there aren't seasons where it's like, like, it's harder.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, I think it's the same thing with being on mission is, like, once you, like, are a part of that, it's like you're tasting and you're seeing, like, the joy of, like, oh, wow, like, this is what it means. And whether that's through a ministry or whether that's, like, serving, volunteering, or if it's just, like, in my everyday life, wherever I am, I'm going to actually talk to someone about what my life is about. And, like, that's incredible. And there's an opportunity for that every single day and to bring people in other ways too. So I think it's just, like, don't be overwhelmed by all the things you could do, but just say, like, here's our first step in living life this way.
I think a lot of it too is just living life in a way that's open. People know, like, if they have a question, like, we're open to have a conversation about it. Like, I mean, we're not out there every single day, like, standing on a street corner trying to, you know,
Come on,
just
guys.
talk to the people that are passing by. But the people that, like, God has put in our path that we have friendships with or deep connections with or people that we just randomly meet, it's like, okay, we cross paths for a reason. And even if it's just for a period of time, like, we'll share in that season together and we'll talk about it.
So it doesn't have to be like you're signing up and you're going to serve at this thing.
Right,
It's just praying for eyes as a couple to be open to what are the opportunities that God is putting before us. And it could be your neighbors. It could be some friends, the other parents, if you're married and have kids, other parents that are on your kids' softball team or whatever. Praying to be able to be on mission.
Yeah, and that's the thing that having margin gives you the ability to do is being interruptible. Like, it's like Jesus was so interruptible, and every time I think about that, I'm like so convicted. Because I'm like, like sometimes we're just scheduling our lives like back to back to back to back, and it's like I want to be there for people that are going through something, or if God gives me an opportunity to talk to someone for a few hours at Jiffy Tree, like I want to be able to do that.
I'd be like, God, I would love to do that, but I've got a 4 o'clock that I need to keep, and so
maybe not. But there's just so much joy in margin and just being able to say, like, okay, and being intentional and like, okay, I want to talk to someone about Jesus, but in a way where you're still letting the Holy Spirit lead and not thinking it has to look like one specific
absolutely. What it needs to be in the moment.
So true.
Last question. If you had to summarize your faith journey today, like where you are today, right now, with one word, capture it in one word, what would that word be?
I'm going with the word becoming.
That's good.
I've actually said this since high school just because I feel like my story is just like layers being added and like peeled back, like deconstructing, reconstructing. Here's what I believe and here's what I'm on mission for. And like just having called myself a Christian basically since the day I was born, like I've just been becoming more like Jesus. And like that's the goal for the rest of life. Cause like I don't have this crazy story of like, I had all these crazy things happen and I hated religion and now I'm a follower of Jesus and now like, you know, like, but it's like just every day it's like the goal is to fall 1% more in love with who Jesus is in my life. So that's what I would choose.
That's a good word. Braden, that's going to be hard to follow right
Oh,
there.
I was gonna point out that was more than one word, but
But becoming,
Yes,
becoming, that was the
becoming.
word. Yeah, and then she explained.
yes. I'm gonna do the same thing though. My word is faithfulness, and I think the reason that I'm choosing that word, one, is because I love the song "Great Is Thy Faithfulness." Like, I'm sure I annoy Evy with the amount of times that I play that song, but it's always the Carrie Underwood version because that's the best version. But no, I just have been constantly astounded and shocked by the like deep love and faithfulness that God shows for us in every situation. I mean, the song says there's no shadow of turning with God, but in every situation, every circumstance, every moment, he's just present with us. And if we pause for enough time to be aware of his presence, we'll see the deep love that he has for us.
Wow, you've definitely followed it up.
That was a good answer.
Yeah, wow.
Man.
Like, I agree. I'm changing my answer to that.
Well, Braden, Evy, thank you so much for joining us today. I kind of even forgot that we were recording a podcast here during this conversation. But I love you guys and really appreciate the time that you gave us today.
Yeah, thanks, Sherwood Oaks viewers. We love you guys.
Viewers,
thanks for making this place
listeners.
home. You know?
And I also want to
too.
point out, did you hear what you just called it? You called it Sherwood Oaks. That very rarely do I hear you say Sherwood Oaks.
I feel like it's like a full name situation. I just remembered that we were on.
It's official.
Full name.
Official business.
Official.
Yeah. The kids these days have been calling it Shokes.
Yep.
I don't know if you're aware of
Shokes.
that. Like
No.
putting them together.
Oh.
Oaks.
There were people offended that we were calling it Sherwood.
Gotta
If
say.
we start calling it Shokes,
Cut this part out.
watch out. We'll cut this part.
I apologize to all my friends from the 8 o'clock service that I joined in with.